Yeah, I just read a quote. They said that there's 900,000 podcasts.
I know.
So how do you differentiate yourself? So you got something special. So I'm honored to be here.
Thank you.
Welcome to 365 Brothers, the podcast. I'm your host, Robin Shine. I am delighted to bring to you brothers from across the United States and from various professions talking about their life experiences, their wisdom, and a conversation that also touches on racial profiling in the United States, how pervasive it is, what the impact is. And remember, you can follow us on Instagram at 365 Brothers. Also, follow us on Facebook at 365 Brothers, the podcast. If this is your first time listening to a 365 Brothers episode, make sure you subscribe because you do not want to miss one brother's wisdom, one brother's experience, and their perspective on life in the United States.
Today, we're speaking to a gentleman who is amazing. I first just got to tell you how I found him. I'm always looking for brothers, always looking for guests. And so I Googled careers that Black men are in. And as I clicked around, I end up on a site called Black Demographics. You guys have to check this out. They are the spot for information about Black in America. And I was like, who put this together? So then I went and did a little clicking around, and that brought me to this gentleman who is a co-founder of Black Demographics. First of all, I just got to say that's how I came across him. He's also the CEO of a massive organization called UniverCity, and that's with a C, UniverCity City. And he is first and foremost an abolitionist. And I know you're going to hear it. You're going to hear that course throughout our conversation. And you'll know exactly what I mean by that by the time this interview is done. And also, he is committed to serving the diaspora. And in that area, he is actually involved in hundreds of businesses in one capacity or another. So this brother is like getting things done. So who we are speaking with today is Tyree Byndom. Welcome, Tyree. It is so good to have you here.
Thank you so much and for inviting me to your platform. And it's Robin Shine. So that's you're shining the light on so many brothers. We appreciate what you do. And thank you for inviting me to your platform.
Oh, I am grateful that I found you. I usually don't say, so make sure you go check out to the end. But really, you guys, you got to go check out his site and see what he's about. It's pretty fabulous. And so with that, before we go into the usual questions, is there anything you'd like to share with the listeners to help them get to know you better?
I always joke that I'm a full-time caregiver for my wife. She has some challenges with, different invisibilities that she deals with, but she's the empress of the Urban University. She really is the empress and empath for our whole movement to make sure that we don't have any misogyny in our movement. Normally in civil rights and most movements, they'll start and then the women, specifically Black women, have to create their own movement because they can never be in charge or really be heard. So really, I serve her as not only her husband, but really as a thrall. And I think serving her in this capacity, really, it creates a different level of intimacy. And I got 10 kids, so 9 girls, 1 boy. And so I serve them first. And everything I do else is part-time, and I do a lot part-time, but really I serve my family first, legacy first, and then the rest of it, I just try to get it in.
Ooh, y'all take notes. I love that.
You got to do it because, when we leave, the only thing that's here is our legacy, is our kids. I mean, that's the only way that we're eternal. There's no other way. I really pour into that. And I got to mention that my partner, Akeem Deshay, when it comes to Black demographics, he's the data wizard of Urban University and everything data, statistics, research and development, intelligence. I couldn't do anything without that brother.
Let's go ahead and ask you some questions.
Okay.
First, what is a favorite song or movie, either now or all time?
I watch everything Black, but ultimately we have a huge thirst. We look at a lot of stuff, but my wife, my Empress, she will not watch science fiction movies with me. So if it's
Okay.
just me in the room, I'm watching The Matrix on repeat. Like The Matrix, that series is one of my my favorites, and the reason being is that
Talk to him.
the parallel with Earth and
Mm-hmm.
with our narrative, there's so many similarities that it's one that resonates with me the most.
Matrix is one of my top faves too. It's
See, The
just
Matrix.
amazing.
See,
Came out on Easter Sunday. The guy's name is Neo. It's all about new. It's all about setting yourself free. Do I need to spell this out? Thank you.
exactly. Now, the fact that a Black woman created that movie and never got credit,
Uh-oh, what? I didn't hear that. What? All
it's
I
a
knew was
hidden secret.
Wachowski brothers.
It's
Well,
not
hold
the
on.
it's not the
Wachowski sisters now.
with sister. They stole the idea from a Black sister named Sylvia. I got the information, but I thought it was a conspiracy theory. It's not, but
Oh,
I'll let
okay.
that I'll let that
Research that.
go. So we
I got
got
a rabbit hole to go down later. Thank you very much.
that's the rabbit hole. So
Anyway, um, let's talk about childhood. What is a favorite moment from your childhood?
I had a pretty traumatic upbringing, and my mom had me at an early age. So we grew up together.
Mm,
She was 13 when she had me in St. Louis.
okay.
My dad, died like on my due date before I was born. So my childhood growing up in the Horseshoe in St. Louis, one of the worst neighborhoods in the nation, murder capital of the world. So, it was kind of tough, but we still had happiness, even though we was in the midst of all that dysfunction. And
Yes, I
so,
understand.
I remember a lot of moments, but I used to go to Saints roller rink, when I was younger. And in
Mhm.
St. Louis, when you went to the roller rink, that was a place that you could go. It was time out for the violence, time
Mm,
out for the nonsense. When you step in here, you either coming in here to skate, socialize, and connect. And this is our safe place.
mm.
And so that was the mantra, during the summer times in St. Louis, we would go to Saints roller rink. That was like the main thing. But that's one of the memories that really kind of resonates for me. And it balances a lot of the trauma, because the
Mm.
trauma never goes away, but the good stuff, I think those moments, those perfect moments, I think really helps us to continue even with the trauma as we do our work to heal. So,
Yeah.
going to Saints roller rink and, doing social events, those are the things that I remember the most. Forest Park in St. Louis, some of those things were very memorable moments.
Out here it was World on Wheels. That was the
World
ring.
on Wheels.
World on
See,
Wheels.
still there, or is it gone?
It's gone.
Most of them gone. Because
Um,
they knew that these were places that were little pods, little places of of
of
connection,
joy.
of health. That was it.
Yeah.
And again, when you have people, you're automatically going to have conflict, especially when you don't teach conflict resolution. So that's going to be a part of it. That's part of our history, that we shut down things due to issues of violence and never really get a chance to restore the community
Mhm.
connection.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I know what era that was. That was late 70s, early 80s. That was Jerry Curl time. Because I
Yeah,
remember,
yeah.
and I was too young. This conversation right now is having me wonder. So
Right.
was it a safe spot then? And I just didn't even know, because nothing went down. Of course, I went when the kids were skating. So last question on skating. Do you do that whole, the backward skating, do all those little moves? You one of those?
Well, I used to be very proficient, but skating is not like bike riding.
Mm,
If you do not continue to skate, your skills will diminish. And so I used to be able to do the back and do that, but
yeah,
now I might be lucky to turn around and turn back around. So
yeah.
uh,
Well, you better than me. I ain't tried that yet. I went a couple times and I was like, just being able to be smooth, that took me the whole first session. So
but
anyway,
they give lessons.
I know. Look, I already got a girlfriend and we already signed up.
People never share that they practiced when you actually went to look good. It's like you didn't practice
Yeah.
on Saturday and Sunday. You better know what you're doing, because that
Yeah,
your
brother.
social standing.
All right. Let me ask you. Are you going to share anything about your childhood, or is there anything about overcoming trauma that you'd want to share?
For me, I've been used to sharing my story, but because it's so much, and I don't need
Okay.
people to necessarily
Yeah.
like feel that, but it's a part
Yeah.
of who I am. Coming from that area, it's really important.
Well, let's talk about accomplishments. I love this question because especially when I'm talking to brothers like yourself who have an abundance of accomplishments. I only want two. I want first the one that means the most to you personally. And
Okay.
then secondly, the accomplishment that is the one that gets the most, wow, when people hear it. So let's start with the first. Which accomplishment of your many is the one that means the most to you personally, Tyree?
I share with people my biggest accomplishment is not on it used to not be on my LinkedIn or my resume.
Mm-hmm.
So just think about that. Like, my biggest accomplishment is not on my LinkedIn. It's not on my resume. It's not on social media. But for me, and when I grew up in St. Louis, my family had their own church. It was Peace Baptist Church in the St. Louis area in Hamilton Heights neighborhood. My mom's family had their own church. My dad's family had their own church. They met. They weren't supposed to meet. That was a whole story. But I grew up as far as I was supposed to, grow up and be a part of the pulpit, and they trained me for that. And I had a love for prophecy and a love for faith perspective, and just a gift of being able to remember that. Griots in Africa, they have to have a good memory. And so for me, I was always the storyteller, memorizing, remembering stuff. But I would say the accomplishment was that I was actually able to find the promised one of all faiths while I'm still alive.
Okay,
and so,
you don't have to say more.
When Dr. King, his last speech, when he said, I see the glory on the mountaintop, and I'm fearing no man, and I see the glory of the Lord, and I'm coming. And then when Malcolm X went to Mecca and came back and was like, I see the tapestry of all humanity, and we're all brothers and sisters, and how they evolved. But all of them had a connection where they was trying to, most of the 8 billion people, the goal of everyone is to try to find the access to the promised one. That's the goal, but we kind of forget that. And so for me as the Paladin, I'm an active, conscious servant of who I call Baha'u'llah, the glory of God, which is actually the founder of a small religious sect called the Baha'i Faith. I'm not a member of the Baha'i Faith, but I'm an active servant of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of that particular faith perspective. And so that's my greatest accomplishment. And I'm actively working to share and spread that information to the diaspora.
Fantastic. I didn't know that aspect of you. And I love having diversity in the religions represented.
And there's 10,000 faith perspectives, but this is, there's only like 7 million members. But for me, I left the faith because they didn't want to save my people. I had to tell them I'm out. I'm going to go save my people. I'll see y'all later. So me and my wife left to go and save the diaspora. So we're actively engaged in this process and committed. The thing that I would say that the accomplishment that is the to do is, in my city, I've won like every single award that they give to leaders. Like they have a annual diversity celebration award for Dr. King. And so they share this award, and they've done it for maybe 30 years. And so I won in 2013. So they give you the key to the city and all of this other stuff. So growing up in my city from the hood, just being a regular guy that grew up and know people in the area, they know my story. And so I've used that key to the city to be an institutional activist and fight for the community and making sure that we have representation in boards and executive and all the different circles and stuff. And so that we have active members communicating for the community to the institutions. And so, I've actively done that, for the past 40 years.
Okay. Wow. That's a long period of service. So, I know we often reserve this for people who've served in the military, but, on behalf of all those who have benefited, thank you for your service. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And, serving the diaspora, 1% of all Blacks serve in the military, but, when it comes to community servants and people who actually serve community, I would say we got about 5 to 10% of local Black community of 50 million in the United States that actually serve community.
Yes.
And do it not for accolades or payment, but they do it because that's the culture.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I'm gonna be honest, I'll be like, how come more people aren't doing so? How come we aren't doing this? You hear like there's not enough of us doing what we need to do. But I appreciate you shifting that perspective and saying, look at all the people who are actively participating in the uplift and the feeding of our community. And we
Right.
that is not the conversation that we have. We're always looking at it from what's not being done, which is
Right.
a pity, because that a conversation that's about what is getting done is much more inspiring and much more enrolling.
But that's the thing. I remember the change in society about 10 years ago, because I was one of the ones who started, who actually, did the trumpet call and say, you know what, we're not doing no more mentoring. We done. We ain't mentoring. We ain't doing nothing else for free. Y'all get paid 6 figures and you want us to do it for free? And you're going to come and pick our brains to save ourselves. So, when we put out this call about 10 years ago, a lot of those community servants stopped because they had to actually make a living doing it. As DEI and urban affairs. And, so we couldn't do it like that for free. Those institutions had to start investing, and they did not make the investment. So you can see the difference in the violence in the community when we stopped about a decade prior.
And for those who may not have caught that, DAI is diversity and inclusion.
And DEI is the tool that they use to basically wipe out BLM.
Okay, so you said DEI. I called myself clarifying, but I was hearing DAI. What's DEI?
No. So diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's the tool that they are using to get rid of Black Lives Matter.
Oh.
Just like they use Black economics to get rid of the Black Panthers and the Black Power movement. They got rid of them. Okay,
so now I got to ask you. We're gonna come back to these questions, but since I did find you through the website Black Demographics, of which you're a co-founder, how did you and Akeem Deshay, how did this come about?
Akeem is such a beautiful brother. He grew up in Rochester, spent some time in Atlanta, and he was actually in Dallas. And years back, we had connected, and I used the site, and I used to mess with him and talk to him every now and then, but we weren't close. But he started Black Demographics by himself from his deathbed.
What?
He was having issues with leukemia and different things as far as health. On his deathbed, he created the website because that was the only thing that he could do while he was sitting there. So he created the website by himself. And so every single data point on the site, Akeem does.
Okay.
Now, what I do is everything that he can't do or find, I find.
Okay.
And as a data scientist, he's more of a wizard. You don't go bother the wizard. You go and deal with the wizard's assistant. So most people come and deal with me, and I'll package it and look and see what we want and then submit it to him. So that's the relationship. But what we found out was this: it's hard to get trust, to build trust with individuals that are used to working by themselves. And
I'm one of them kind.
Yeah. And I'm connected to hundreds of individuals where I've had to and show them that I'm trustworthy based on my example and my deeds, and show them that I'm worthy of trust. I don't know what you've had with other people, but I'll never let you down. And so I had to build trust with Akeem and build trust and show my value and things that we normally have to do when we love people. And so we teamed up. He was able to see what I could bring, and he didn't really know what I did. Like, I didn't tell him about Urban University or any of this stuff, but I was recruiting him because that's who I am. I'm the recruiter. I'll go and recruit all the pieces for the diaspora. And so his piece is research and development. I knew that I needed a research and development arm for what we were creating. And I knew that I needed a data scientist that was at the genius level. And
Yes.
so it didn't matter how much time it took for me to have a
Bring
loving
him in the
relationship with this
fold.
man.
Yeah.
It the time didn't matter, when you're
I
dealing
got
with destiny. And so once we saw that the data wasn't helping people to actually evolve, we had to change the plan. And so in changing the plan, we said, we give them the blueprint for Black America, but the blueprint isn't helping the community. So now we have to give them a playbook.
Yeah.
And so I've been creating the playbook for the past 3 or 4 years since we've been connected. It's really a tandem where he does the analytics and the data and the research, and I do the outreach and the connection and actually going into the communities and helping them to evolve and change and vibrate at the highest level possible. So
I
that's
love all
that's
that.
how we teamed up.
I love all that. So I still haven't actually gotten to that second piece. What's the one where people go, ooh, or wow?
You mean the accomplishment? That key to the
Key
city,
to the city. Okay, got you.
because
Excellent.
everybody see that in my local community, and so they know who I am. But you know what they say about me?
What they say?
They said, this one lady said one time, she said, they love you. She said they absolutely love and adore you. And so, and you can't really do any wrong. And I was like, now, I grew up in the hood, right? Like, this is social capital. I've had to build my social capital up so much that they can't assassinate me.
Hey.
It's not that they don't want to.
Yeah.
But they would have to think twice about it. And so you have to build your social capital. Men, Black women and communities, all the things that you're doing is to build up your social capital. That's what we're doing in our communities, but we don't know the language to even measure social capital.
Yeah. There are people getting PhDs on that. So yeah, there's something to know there. Ooh, all juicy. So let's talk about words. What is a favorite quote, saying, metaphor, or book, and why?
I have my phrases, but the one that I use the most and is my favorite is from the movie Tombstone.
Okay.
It was with Doc Holliday. I'm your Huckleberry.
Okay, now to explain. I don't know. I don't know. I saw the movie. Don't remember that line. Don't know the reference.
So when he said, when they had to find somebody to go and do the dirty work, he said, I'm your Huckleberry. So when it comes to going to this board or talking to the mayor or talking to the chief of police or talking to any institution or organization or individual or knucklehead that's going around town shooting up, when it comes time to actually go and talk to a person, I'm normally your Huckleberry.
Okay.
I'm normally the one that will go and have those tough discussions and conversations, and to facilitate when we're in chaos. How do we actually transition out of chaos into community? And so normally that's my phrase I use an awful lot. My wife uses it actually more than I do.
Okay. So both of y'all handling business over there, handling it.
We try. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I do get why, just in our brief interaction, I can see why they would come to you, because the sense of you that I get is someone who is very clear, very straight, but also a good listener, able to hear. Like, the word that comes to mind is connector. It's obvious you're a connector of people, a connector of ideas. That's what you do. You connect. And so that is the perfect person to bring two sides together. That's
Yes,
awesome.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's talk about some more experiences. What is a conversation, moment, or event that either changed the trajectory of your life or it had a significant impact on your life?
As a young man, I remember that I got myself into a lot of trouble. In the city that I'm in Columbia, Missouri. It's right between Kansas City and St. Louis. There's roughly 20,000 Black folk in my city. Less than 10% of the Black men in my city have no criminal conviction.
I'm sorry. Less than 10% have none, have no
Only
criminal.
10% have none.
Okay.
And so navigating through this community that funnels Black men into the DOC like they're going into the NFL, it was very challenging. And so, I got myself to the point where I had like 800 hours of community service one year, and there wasn't any way around it other than to just do it. And I remember just really having a conversation with myself and say, self, you got yourself in a predicament. Like, are you going to do it or are you going to buy out? And I remember, my dad, because I never had a relationship with my dad. So my dad in a dream told me that he was going to send somebody to teach me the word.
Okay.
And a couple of weeks later, when I was in the midst of all of this stuff and getting in trouble, and I met this guy. He was kind of a holy roller. He was kind of in a bad position, but we connected. And he had asked me a question. And at the point, I was agnostic.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm agnostic. I don't believe in all that stuff. And he was like, well, do you believe that Jesus died for your sin? And I was like, I guess. He was like, you ain't agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the last time we even had a conversation. I ain't never seen a dude after that.
Wow.
But being able to have that question and remind me that I was a believer.
Yeah.
And how deep my belief was. It changed the trajectory of who I was at that time. And shortly after that, I ended up joining the Marine Corps when I was like 16 and a half. And so, I had to get out of my city to get into the service instead of going into the DOC.
And DOC, Department of Corrections. Let me make sure I'm understanding this right. So before you were 16, you had enough activity that drew police attention that you had 807 hours of community service at age
1 year to complete in 1 year at age 15, or you go to jail.
So that's how they do that. Were you really doing hardcore stuff, or were these like those kind of tickets that just, jaywalking and loitering and stuff like that?
For them, they consider anything to be serious.
Okay.
When you think about it, and when you're growing up as a product of your environment in the hood, they don't teach you when you break this law, here's what happened, or when you break this law, or here's the laws, and here, they don't teach you that. You find out when they roll up and you run it. Okay. No one is explaining to you the laws, but I got in a lot. It was pretty substantial trouble.
Okay.
I moved from St. Louis to a small town, but most kids understand that before age 16, they can't try me as an adult. If you're going to do something, you better do it before 16, because after 16, you're an adult and that time going to hit different. So I knew that growing up, if you better get it out your system, because after that certain age, it's a wrap. It's on your record and you can't be sealed. So all of that stuff on my record was sealed.
Okay. Gotcha. And then back to this conversation that changed the trajectory of your life. I mean, it sounds like it was less than 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe 5 at tops.
It was a 5-minute conversation.
Wow. Bless that angel, whoever he was.
and I know it's an angel because he was in a situation where I could tell he was holy. I could just kind of tell, and I could tell he was off. So this person got their wings dirtied up to be in a position to connect with me, to help me change the trajectory. So it was powerful.
Yeah, a profound moment.
It changed. It really changed me, and that was one of the only times that I had that experience with my ancestor as my progenitor and father.
So now I want to ask you, what is a moment that either highlights or in some way signifies your experience as a Black man in the United States?
And as a Black man in the United States, there's so many different parts to it. And, I think of James Baldwin. I think of just a lot of the iconic leaders that share about their understanding of being a Black man and how difficult it is. But, for me, because I understand that we are the Aboriginal inheritors of this planet, we didn't come here through angelic or spaceship help. We was here. Melanated people, we've been here. Everybody else is alien. So for me, knowing that, every continent, every land base is our home, that this is our home, and that this is really our inheritance, and it's been violently taken from us systemically on this planet, and that we have an opportunity to really share and discover that narrative like archaeologists and start to offer that information to the people that are alive and really help nurture them and help them to wake up. And so as a Black man on a spaceship called Earth, in this particular reality, in this narrative based on this creation story, just being able to contribute and to co-create, but also to have an opportunity for eternity, I think is an incredible thing.
Hold on, I'm going to dig in on this. So what I'm actually interested in is a moment or an event. So what is something that is that moment that represents that for you?
Okay. You know what? I'm going to share this with you. And most people, you know, in the audience, they won't know. So I have to share it with you.
Okay.
So most of my dating life, I love women. So I dated a lot of different women. I've had a lot of relationships growing up. But a lot of the relationships, I had a reputation for just dating white girls.
Okay.
That was the reputation I had. And I was like, how did I get this reputation? But when I got divorced in 2012, I remember that my mom used to have an issue with that. And she used to say, how Malcolm X gonna be dating a white girl? But she used to always say, why don't you see me as beautiful? Ooh. She said, you don't see me as beautiful, son. She's like, why are you dating these Black? They don't understand you. And I was like, you know, you're right, Mama. I said, I'm just trying to get some good credit. I'm just trying to get some good credit. I used to date based on credit. That was superficial. But it was important. You got to have good credit.
Ain't nobody judging.
You can't change your zip code with no bad credit. And I changed my zip code. But one of the things that I realized was when I was divorced and I was sitting in my house and with my kids and stuff, and I was by myself, and I was like, you know, I think Mama was right. I'm not dating no more. And so that changed, and really understanding that I'm gonna look for somebody that really understands all aspects of me. And then I found my Empress. And that changed my life. We've been together about a decade now. And so since I met her, day and night. I wasn't worthy before.
Awesome. Well, now I want to ask you about your experiences with law enforcement. And obviously, we've already set up that there have been some, right? So what would you like to share about your experiences with law enforcement?
You know, I actually have a really deep relationship with law enforcement. In our local community, we had a Black area in Jim Crow that was called the Sharp End. The Sharp End was 600 homes, 400 businesses. It's gone now. They demolished and tore down all of it and created projects.
Okay.
They did that in 1,600 economic centers in the United States out of all the 20,000 cities in the US. They wiped out all of our Black economic centers just like Tulsa. They did it systemically between 1918 and 1921. During Red Summer, they wiped us all out. We don't know about this story yet. We're just now sharing it. We know about Tulsa, but we don't know about all the other ones because they did it systemically. And the law enforcement or slave patrol or the police were very intimately connected with it. And in our local community in the Sharp End here, the police couldn't even come into the Black area. They had to ask for permission and be escorted in with a community liaison.
I remember hearing this from another brother. Yeah, I saw another brother from St. Louis shared this with me, and I was like, for real? And he was like, seriously? Yeah.
Saying they didn't come into our communities. We escorted them and we asked them to come in and we explained to the situation, and they took the person away. They had the medical charts. It was a very nurturing process when we had a village. So during those economic centers, during those Black centers, once white folks start coming into our economic centers, once white women and white kids bored wanted to come and connect multiculturally with us because we had the best music, we had the best, party. I mean, we had the best, more soulful place. Once they did that, they systemically wiped out those communities, and the officers were the entity that was used to facilitate the corralling of Negroes into the Jim Crow areas. And even now through gentrification, they killed Nip just because he was trying to go meet with the police chief to stop violence in the community, they sent shitty cuz to go kill him from the officers to assassinate this brother on his own land because they knew they couldn't have guns and weapons because he was a felon. And he still ain't went to court.
Wait.
And that's Nipsey Hussle. The officer set him up. But again,
okay,
that's not public knowledge.
All right. No, but I mean, you got to realize I'm right here in Southern California. So, you say that and I'm kind of like, what? Wait, what'd you say? Yes. Here's what I do know, like how you were saying he was going to meet with the police. I do recall that he basically he wanted to create a way so that violence, like you said, could end, but he was actually trying to create programmatic change in the community and economic change in the community that would then almost no longer necessitate the need over time for police. Is that about right?
That's right.
Now that much I know.
And I was connected to these brothers in Idris, and we was talking before then. But one of the things that he had said was he didn't have, even though he was able to make impact and change, he wasn't able to make it systemic or make it or to franchise the idea because he couldn't get access to capital and funding and assistance. And so he was making that move to get institutional help to advocate for that community. Mm-hmm. But there are certain individuals in community who only thrive off of chaos.
I got you.
And that's normal. And that's normally people that use narcs, people that use people that's keeping all the BS going in the community is normally the officers and detectives.
I'll leave it to my listeners to go do some additional research if you want. It's not a deep rabbit hole. You go look and you'll find what is being alluded to here. But anyway.
But I'm pretty cool with the local police chief. I'm cool with a couple of the chiefs. I'm cool with a couple of the officers. I'm cool with them because they scared of me, because they know that if I get anybody to say, hey, this officer did this, I'm going down to the station and be like, hey, we want to file a formal complaint. Mm-hmm. And we going to the Citizens Review Board and we going to protest. So what's up? Ain't no Deboing in this community. So, but a lot of communities don't have that. But I take it, I don't take it for granted that I have access to, a lot of the top leaders. I mean, they're all on my phone. I got national leaders on my phone, but we don't contact each other like that. It's more like when there's something in community, they know who to contact. We know who to contact, because at that certain point, when it's all of us, a lot of the divisions, should fall away.
Yes,
but they don't. But I'm one of the people that no matter what, I stay in the conversation. So I could not like your ass and still be in the meeting. We ain't got to get along, but I'm gonna still be in this meeting.
Right.
If somebody needs to be there.
Right. You are solution oriented. Okay. So now I'd like to ask you, if the United States was a woman with whom you could speak, whether she's a lover, mother, stranger, neighbor, friend, your choice, you call it, what would you say to her?
I think that the United States is a woman, based on the way that she nurtures and is the spiritual leader of the world, really. And, what I would say to her is that, forgive us for not loving you accurately. Forgive us for bickering and being divisive and just really being terrible kids. I apologize on behalf of all of us that we can't have a sense of unity and a sense of connectedness and togetherness, so that we can actually go and do other stuff and help other countries and find a way to get off this rock in a united fashion. So I apologize to her, and I'm doing my best to try to make sure that she can fulfill her destiny as a nation.
Okay. When you said, imagine if we got our stuff together, what we could do for the world. I got to be honest with you. I'm like, I feel like I'm generally pretty positive. Like I say, it has never occurred to me. It has never occurred to me, like if America was together, what that could look like in terms of like just with COVID. Just with COVID. Like if our heart were in the right place, we could have our companies, along with some Western European companies, came up with the formula. What if instead of that greed, we had actually given permission to all these nations to create it, make it, sent our folks to help make sure it was done right, if in case we had any concerns, and then knock it out.
Right?
Yeah. So you actually, and this is what I love about conversation, you've just created a possibility for me that didn't exist. The possibility of the United States being a spiritual leader, a nation committed to the uplift and development of the whole globe. Like it just was like, because I just live in, well, this is how they do. Like we capitalists, we don't care. We don't like y'all, we don't care. But the possibility of some other way was not present until you spoke. So thank you.
But you know what? It's our inheritance, and we are the meek. Now, other people might not have value it because they don't value us accurately. So they, of course, they're not going to value mother. The mother is so submissive. Mother Earth is so submissive. She gives us everything, never asks for nothing.
Right.
But if we trip, she'll send you a tsunami. So, so she couldn't breathe. So she's like, I'm going to have everybody sit down.
Oh, snap.
Until she could breathe again. The ozone went from here to here.
I know.
We're getting there.
I want to ask you about love. What is a moment that epitomizes love in a non-familial relationship?
I would say that I have, I have a physical brother. We don't necessarily, we aren't on talking terms right now, but during the last couple years, 3 or 4 years, my chief opportunities officer with Urban University, his name is Donald Murphy. He's out of Denver.
Okay.
And me and this brother, we're both from St. Louis. We were connected by a mutual friend about 4 or 5 years ago. And when I talk to this brother, we'll talk for like 3 or 4 hours. And I share with him, like, this is just part of our conversation. As we're creating a global based business, I'm telling him, I say, it's just the conversation. And so he mentioned just recently, he was like, man, I appreciate you. I didn't necessarily get it. And he's like, I'm still, kind of getting it because it's a lot.
Yeah.
But he said, I appreciate how you nurtured and loved me unconditionally. And even when I was hurt based on what the city and all these different people betrayed me and did this, even though I was lashing, it never stopped. The love didn't stop. And so, and I told him, I said, in order for us to do this thing, we have to be able to vibrate and love each other unconditionally through agape, through eros, through all the different types of love. We have to be able to have this love for each other that can surpass the ego. Because at the end of the day, the only weapon that we have is love. The only thing that doesn't diminish is love. And so that relationship and him being able to reciprocate that as I lose my physical, but I still, there's no hole because I have this connection with all these brothers that I'm working with and sisters that we're working with globally to disrupt their cities from the good old boy network and end oppression. And so, as we do this work, we just fall in love with each other. And that's just a part of it, being able to have those type of discussions and conversations. And so, for a lot of these individuals that I recruited into our collective, it's really a love affair. And it starts at the discussion because really I'm connecting to your soul and the God in you and the Holy Spirit through you. That's what I'm having the conversation with. And with those people that connect and resonate with your blog, they're here because they're supposed to be.
Yeah. Oh, I'm vibing on everything you're saying. So what I'm hearing is like, there's no absence of a brother. There is the expansion of who brother gets to be.
Right. because it could be something like when you look at our trauma, the Empress, that her gift is to she's the curse breaker. So when you look at our system, when she talks to people or she speaks, her specialty, because we do life coaching, we do soul and destiny coaching. And so she talked to people to deal with and deal with the past, to really bring you up to the point where I'm okay.
Yeah.
Because if you can't ravel that trauma and deal with that trauma in the past, you're not gonna be good. And I don't care how much money you get, it's not gonna make those issues go away, and you're still gonna have to do the work. And so my gift is I know how to connect people with their destiny. And so I know how to project and vision cast to the future. And so my destiny is to help 1 billion people achieve, attain, and maintain their own.
Wow. Here's the almost last question here. If you could spend 5 hours with any Black man, living or dead, who would you choose? And what would you talk about, or what would you do?
Well, it's interesting that I just shared maybe 4 or 5 days ago. I do a blog on LinkedIn called Black Hand Side, and I just started it a couple of weeks ago. But I've been doing this daily Black history that you've never heard about before. I've been doing it for 10 years. Every day. Every day I share it. Now I haven't started putting it, newsletter and really putting the research and doing all the extra that I do now. But I'm fine tuning the process. But just the other day I did one on William Steele. William Steele was considered the father of the Underground Railroad. He was the only Black man that documented how he freed people, their names, how they escaped, where they went to. He documented all of it. And it's one of the only books in the Underground Railroad that's available. I attached the book for free on my blog, on my newsletter. It's when you go into the newsletter, it's green, you click on it, it's right there. So William Steele was the father of the Underground Railroad. I would have a discussion with him, and the discussion that I would have as I'm building the Millennial Railroad, I would ask him to consult with me, and I would tell him that everything that I do as an ancestor and progenitor, I would make sure that I list his name so that his soul gets credit in the current moments as we're building this in the future, so that him and his children and those that love him, their station will be elevated in the next realms of the divinity. And so that's what I would talk to him about, the specifics of how do we build this. When Dr. King asked to Harry Belafonte, we've transitioned into a burning house, and he didn't know how to do what he was doing. He was playing with it. He wasn't prepared. He was just trying to do his best. He didn't know how to deal with, getting the economics and the jobs and all these things that we're dealing with now. There's 6 forms of slavery that equal the oppression that we face. There's chattel, there's mental, there's social, there's cultural, there's economic, and there's religious. All of those 6 forms of slavery equal the oppression that we face on a day-to-day basis, systemically, globally, and on every continent, in every city. We face the same thing as 2 billion people in the diaspora and 350 million that are outside the motherland that still have not been retrieved. And about 95% of us are mentally enslaved right now.
Oh, that's all?
5% woke is pretty good.
Okay.
Because our enemies are very good at whitewashing and erasure of history and knowledge. And this is why our kids don't want to go to school. They don't see themselves, and they have no connection to the history whatsoever. So we have a way, when they come to Black demographics, we have a way to give them everything they're missing for free.
There's so much. Love your choice, obviously. And I'll tell you the part that really I was like, ooh, is collaborating with him and then saying, and you get that karmic credit too. We're gonna share in this. Yeah, I like that.
Now that you said it, I gotta do it. And this is why I honor abolitionists every day. We channel abolitionists eternally. We channel them every day. Every day, day in, day out. We remember them. And we pray and connect to them. And one of the things on Urban University that we say is we connect the ancestors to the unborn.
I saw that. I loved it.
And so what I found is that when we die and transition to the next world, the whole purpose in the next world is to inspire those that are here. So if we can do the work of inspiring people that's here while we're here,
yeah,
and know our destiny, and when we leave and give up this and we give up our ghosts for this 120 years, we can transition. Those that are here still know that they can connect to us. They still know how they can benefit us. We're going to leave them money and generational wealth so they can do the work and not fall back into poverty, but they can do the work without asking people that don't love them, that won't free them, to get assistance.
We're really at the end. Now that we've had this conversation, Tyree, what's something you've learned newly today about yourself or about your life?
That, life is interesting. We don't have instincts, so we have to trust, our mom and dad. And talking with you and in reflecting on this, I really appreciate the format and how you do it and how you share it. I think it's definitely needed. Reflection is normally the thing that we don't do unless there's opportunities like this. I'm normally on the go. I'll take my moment, my time to reflect, but I really don't do it in this way. But you've given me a piece of the puzzle today in really understanding how to connect with people, not just women, but to connect with people at the highest level for what we need to do based as a human being. That's the gift that you gave me, and looking at the questions and reflecting. So, I'm blessed because I have people that contact me, at least 3 or 4 people contact me each week, asking how can we change our fortunes in our communities, and how can we beat this enemy. So people contact me on a week-to-week basis, and we're blessed to be able to offer them data, to offer them solutions, to offer them technology and innovation, but really to offer them friendship.
Wow. So listeners, you heard it. There's so many reasons you might have to reach out to Mr. Byndom. There will be a link in the show notes. Before I share what I got from who you are, I want to give you an opportunity to share with listeners how to connect with you, which ways you prefer. So go for it.
The easiest, my website, tyreebyndom.com. I have my own personal brand, but also we have Black demographics. We have Urban UniverCity with a C, not an S. All of those ways, it's my own personal cell phone number. So I'm unapologetically Obsidian and Black. So you can contact me directly. You emailed us, I responded to you. So we're approachable. We're approachable to anybody in the diaspora, and we assist them in whatever way possible. So I'm always here.
At the end, I always share the impression of the person I've interviewed, and who I'm left with is invested connector. It's I already identified you're a connector, that's who you be, but that's not enough to say you're invested. You are invested in the uplift, in the growth, in the expansion, in the wholeness, being holistic, that our community thrives, and you are invested. That's on a, out there level. Internally, it's so clear that you're invested in the growth and development of your soul. It is so evident that you are on a soul climb, on an ascension, right? So I just thank you for being an invested connector that is uplifting our community. And by way, as you talked about the United States being a spiritual lead for the world, I also understand from this conversation that as we, as Black Americans and the diaspora, but in particular, as we as Black Americans thrive, what that makes available for everybody else. Because when we do something, people are like, well, right or wrong, they go, well, if they could do it, right? So everybody is kind of got that. We do it, they're like, I'm gonna do it then. All right, you go ahead. You go ahead and follow. So,
but Robin, I really appreciate that perspective and the feedback. And we are united at the very minimum by our oppression and our melanin. So we're doing, and we accept contributions of everybody in the diaspora, no matter what you're doing. So you don't have to do anything special for us to love on you.
Remember, you can follow us on Instagram at 365 Brothers. Also, follow us on Facebook at 365 Brothers, the podcast. Lastly, I just want to let you know, producing a podcast, it takes something, and I'm really grateful to have partnered with alitu.com. They make publishing easy. There's a link in the show notes for anyone who either has a podcast or is thinking about a podcast. You don't need to learn all that sound balancing and compression. Save all that. Use your time for what matters, interviewing and sharing the stories that your podcast brings. Thank you for listening to 365 Brothers. Certainly hope you enjoyed the episode. I encourage you to subscribe. Please leave a review. I want to know what you think. Also, if you know someone who would be a fantastic guest for 365 Brothers, please direct them to our website, 365brothers.com. You'll also find all the episodes there, 365brothers.com. And your support is welcome. And remember, to listen is to love.